Uh, Yikes. And this book is not at all what I expected it to be, like not even close. Was I lied to? Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley and today I'm going to be starting a reading vlog where I read your book recommendations. So I recently just hit 4,000 subscribers, which is bonkers to me. That was my end of year goal that I didn't think was going to actually happen. And it happened in October, which is crazy to me. And so as a thank you / celebration, I asked you guys what you would prefer me to do, gave you a couple options, and you wanted me to do a reading vlog where I read my subscribers' book recommendations. And so that is what we're doing today. So I posted on my community section on YouTube and just said, give me any book recommendation. I also gave you a link to my Goodreads list at my end of the year TBR in case you wanted to be nice and choose something from there. And luckily those were the winners, were things that were already on my list. So I'm pulling off of books I was already interested in and wanted to get to by the end of the year, but putting them all in a vlog so that you can see my reading experience with them. So I went through all of your comments and looked to see which books were mentioned the most, and to no one's surprise, the one that was by and far the winner was In My Dreams, I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead, which is the book that you guys have been recommending to me for like the past month nonstop. So it's only right that this book makes it into this video. You've been so hyped to see my reaction of this. Everyone's really loving this thriller this year, and you all think I'm gonna love it too. So I'm very excited to see how I feel about this. I know it has a dark academia feel to it, and it follows a group of friends who something bad happened when they were all in college together. One of them died, and now they're brought back together for their reunion. And one of the people at the reunion thinks that someone in the friend group was responsible for the murder of their friend, and they've all got secrets, and it's like a whodunit. So it sounds really good. Super interested to check this one out. And then the other two books I think had an equal number of votes if I'm remembering correctly, but it was Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune and Miss March by Virginia Fato. So Under the Whispering Door is one of my most anticipated books of the year because I love TJ Klune's last book, The House of the Cerulean Sea, last year, and this one sounds like it's gonna have a similar sort of whimsical, sad feel to it. I don't know exactly what this book's about, but I know it has something to do with life, and it's going to be one of those big emotional books. There is a ferryman to death and something happening there, and then the inside flap says it is hilarious, haunting, and kind, an uplifting story about a life spent at the office and a death spent building a home. So I'm ready to cry. I think this is gonna do it. I'm very excited for this one. And then Miss March is a mystery / thriller that I haven't really heard anyone talk about. I just saw it myself in a bookstore and thought it looked kind of cool. And it has something to do with the literary publishing world. The inside flap says it's an explosive debut novel that flips the New York literary scene on its pretentious head. And I've really loved a lot of publishing thrillers this year, so I think this could be right up my alley, and I'm excited for this one as well. So since this one is so popular, this is the one I'm gonna get started with. I'm also just so excited to jump in and see what it's all about since it's getting so much hype. So I'm gonna start reading this one and I'll let you know how it's going once I start getting a feel for the story. Yikes. So I see why people think I would love this book, but I'm worried that I'm not going to love this book. Let me explain. So I am a little under halfway through this book right now. It reads very quickly, and so I am going through it pretty quickly, but it's not living up to the hype so far. I'm not sure why this is getting so hyped, because this is reminding me a lot of The Guest List by Lucy Foley, which was highly hyped last year. I really loved The Guest List. I gave that 5 stars. It was one of my favorite thrillers last year, and I feel like this book does everything that that book did, and so it's a little surprising to me that this is getting so much hype because it's not feeling new. I don't think it's bad. I think it's good. I just think I've read this a lot at this point, and so it's not giving anything unique or special so far. The atmosphere is like not really there for me. This doesn't feel very dark academia. I'm gonna need to back up for a second. So this book, okay, it follows this group of friends from college. They were a tight-knit group of friends. Some of them were in relationships. They were across different sororities and things. They all lived in the same dorm their freshman year. That was how they became friends. And by senior year, one of the friends gets murdered. Another one looks guilty of it, but there's not enough evidence to convict him. And so he never gets convicted, but everyone kind of shuns him because it seems like he might have done it. And then 10 years pass or so, and now they're at their homecoming reunion for college. And the main character you're following is Jessica, or Jess. And she is coming to this reunion really wanting to prove like how successful she is, how much she's grown, how she has like the best life, because she always felt invisible or like the underdog in the past in both their friend group and just like always in her life. She's always felt that way. And so she really wants to come here and be like, I'm the best. Look at how successful I am. Look how great my life is. Look at how I've gotten this awesome job, and just really show off. And so I really just don't like her. I think she's extremely unlikable. And I assume that's meant to be the point. Like, I assume you're not really supposed to like her because she is insufferable. And I don't like anything about her. I can't sympathize or relate to her either for being this way. Like, she's just kind of terrible. And she's got a complicated history with these people. The guy she dated all through school, his name, or his nickname that they call him, is Mint. It was like his last name. She dated him all through school, but like really she kind of had feelings for another guy, but he didn't have a solid future ahead of him, so she didn't want to be with him because she wants to be the best all the time. And so she just stuck with this one guy. They make it all through school together, and then after school he ends up deciding he wants to be with another one of the girls in the friend group, and then she's like devastated. So now he's married to another one of the girls, and then the other guy she was interested in is married to one of the other girls as well. And their friendship is just like a very toxic group of individuals all put together. And now they're at this reunion, and the girl who was murdered in school, Heather, her younger brother still works at the school and helped orchestrate this event, and he has been like trying to look into her murder the past 10 years, and he's convinced that one of them did it, and he's trying to get them to see and get the person who did it to like finally reveal that they did it. So the reason this feels so similar to the guest list is because they're all really just unlikable. There's a lot of characters, they're all really unlikable. It's a whodunit, you know, one of them did it, and there's this special occasion bringing them all together. They've all got these secrets that are coming out, and they all kind of suck. Don't get me wrong, it's good, like I like it, but it's just not giving anything new for me right now. And so I'm very surprised that everyone's like really loving it. I wonder if something's gonna happen in the second half. It's gonna be this crazy plot twist, but the way I see the story going, it's kind of unfolding in a way that makes a lot of sense to me. Like, you keep learning a secret from everyone looks a little bit culpable, and our main character has memory loss from the night that the girl died. So it feels like that's gonna be where the story's going. And I don't know. It could still surprise me, I guess, but right now it's just feeling like a 3-star. So hopefully that picks up in the second half. I don't know. I will say it's like really readable. In the beginning, I was having a little bit of trouble getting into it because there are a lot of characters. There is a Caroline and a Courtney and a Coop, and so all those C names got really confusing, and I had to take notes on my phone to like remember who all these different characters are, because it's a very large cast of people, some that you're getting more exposure to and history on than others, and that just took a long time for me to be able to easily just remember who characters were. Like, I wish we would have started establishing their relationships to the main character a little bit earlier so that you could like introduce one at a time and really get to know them instead of just being like, oh, who are all these people? But I do feel a little bit better about that now, and it is getting fast paced. Like, I am over halfway through it after like 2 sittings of reading through it, so I think I'll be able to probably finish this the next time I sit down with it, just because I'm going to be really curious, and I'm sure the pace is going to pick up at the end. So we'll see how the ending goes. Okay, so I finished In My Dreams a Hold a Night last night in bed. I stayed up late to finish it, and it's gonna come in at like a 3.5 stars for me. I wish I would have read this earlier because I bet I would have liked it more if I didn't build up so much anticipation and hype for this for so long, because it kind of reminded me of The Guest List, and I loved The Guest List. I gave The Guest List 5 stars, and then a bunch of other people started reading it, and they were like, this isn't as great as everyone says, it doesn't live up to the hype, and it's just kind of like your classic fun murder mystery setup where there's a bunch of characters, you know, someone did it, but you don't know why. And that's what this is too, but I haven't heard it pitched like that. And so maybe also I just wish it would have been pitched like that so I'd have known what I was getting into. I thought this was going to be a really twisty, like psychological thriller, which like, okay, I guess it was. It was a psychological thriller and it was twisty, but it also just felt like your average murder mystery setup, which I love. But I thought this was just good. I thought it was just good. It wasn't my new favorite thriller of all time. I liked it. It was a good thriller. It was a very compelling read. And I made a pros and cons list because I felt like I was being harsh. And so I was trying to figure out what are my pros, what are my cons. So the pros about this book, I think it was compulsively readable. It sucked me in. I couldn't stop reading it. I wanted to know how it ended. I would think about it when I put it down. It was just a fun read. I also thought it wraps up nicely at the end. Thrillers don't always do that. Sometimes they leave some loose threads or it's not satisfying. And this I thought wrapped up perfectly. I really liked the direction that it went. I thought the plot twist was perfect. I thought the secondary plot twist was perfect. I really liked the way that it ended. It's also interesting that the main character is sort of a villain in this story, and she kind of holds that arc throughout the story. This isn't your story with a thriller where there is a person who has things to learn and they grow and they become this really great person at the end of it. She's more complex. She's not the best person at the end of the book. She's still a narcissist and still has a lot of flaws and things to work through. And so that makes her interesting, and I liked that. And then finally, I think this perfectly fits the bill for a dark academia book. It goes beyond just vibes and aesthetic of dark academia and really gives you a cast of unlikable characters who are all really driven by success and prestige. And you really get to explore the theme of how far people will go for their reputation or what they think is the right thing to do in terms of becoming successful and being the best and being the most prestigious, and how that drives each character in their own story into a bad direction. And so I think that was really perfectly done. So the cons to this book, the reason it's not a 5-star read for me, I did think there were too many characters. I think we could have shaved a couple characters off. It got a little confusing and complicated. I couldn't remember all the characters all the time, and it got spread really wide with a bunch of different characters having all these different things going on. And it's fun to have a lot of red herrings and to see a lot of characters who all have different motives and to think that anyone could be responsible. But I just felt like there were a little bit too many characters, and I would have liked to see maybe like 2 to 4 less characters in this story. Also, I feel like this book exists in a bit of a bubble because the majority of the events in the book take place over the homecoming festivities, which is like over 2 days, and you really only see like 3 different settings, and then so much of the book is flashbacks of them in college. And so it feels like it exists in this really weird expansive bubble where you know in the present day they're still doing the homecoming things, but you just keep getting brought back to the past so much of the book, and not a lot is actually happening in the present day. It's just going through the threads of, could it be this person? 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 And I would have liked to see more happening in that present day story, and for that to be maybe stretched out over like a week of time, I think would be pretty interesting. That ties into my third con, which is that it just doesn't feel like a lot is happening in this book because so much of it is just flashbacks of getting to understand the characters' relationships, and also it just felt like I was doing so much mental work trying to figure out the relationships between the characters through the flashbacks that it wasn't effortless in that way. And then it felt like we were in this bubble and not a lot was actually happening. It was just like, here's everything you need to learn from the past to be able to understand what's happening over these 2 days. And so that dynamic was not my favorite. But overall, yeah, I think it was a good book. I definitely see why everyone thinks I would have loved this so much. It does seem right up my alley, but it just wasn't the perfect book for me. And I think I just may have gotten too high hopes with the anticipation for this one. So next up, I'm going to be reading Mrs. March by Virginia Fato. And this one has to do with the literary publishing world, but I really don't know what all to expect from this book. So let's read the synopsis together real quick. It says, George March's latest novel is a smash. No one could be prouder than his dutiful wife, Mrs. March. One morning, the shopkeeper wallpaper of her favorite patisserie suggests that her husband's latest protagonist, a detestable character named Johanna, is based on Mrs. March herself. Clutching her ostrich leather pocketbook and mint-colored gloves, she flees the shop. That one casual remark robs Mrs. March of the belief that she knew everything about her husband and herself. Suddenly, she is hurled on a harrowing journey that begins within the pages of a book. As she begins to decode her husband's secrets, her deafening anxiety and fierce determination threaten everyone in her wake. Combining a Hitchcockian sensibility with wickedly dark humor, Virginia Feydeau, a brilliantly talented and mischievous newcomer, offers a razor-sharp exploration of the fragility of identity. Oh, also Virginia Feydeau is apparently a native of Spain who was raised in Madrid and Paris, so that's fun. Oh, she lives in Madrid. Fun. So I have no idea what I'm getting into with this, but I have been wanting to read this for a while, and I'm actually kind of surprised that this was so highly voted on. I think part of that was probably due to the fact that this isn't a book that I've seen get a lot of reviews. Some of the comments were saying too, like, oh, I want to see you read Miss March so that I know what it's about, because I haven't heard anyone talk about it. So I'm happy to be your guinea pig. This could be great, could be terrible, could be in between. No idea, but we will find out together. Started reading Mrs. March, and I'm probably like 40% through. I've read to page 110 so far, and it's a shorter book. And this book is not at all what I expected it to be, like not even close to what I expected it to be. I thought this was going to be like kind of a cozy murder mystery with thriller vibes, set back in time, very detective style, but like regular person becomes detective style, full of action, full of intrigue, full of twists and surprises. Not even close, like not even remotely close in any way whatsoever. So from the synopsis of this story, we know that we're following a woman named Mrs. March, whose husband, Mr. March, George March, is an author, and he wrote a book, and the main character in the book is insufferable. She is ugly and awful and described as a whore. And then people think that he took inspiration from her into that character, and she finds that out, and then she gets deeply offended by that. Additionally, she's going through his things, and she finds a scrap piece of newspaper in one of his books about this girl who's gone missing, and he happens to be gone a lot hunting with his editor, and she thinks he may be connected to that for some reason. So that's where the story begins. We start with her figuring out that people think that this awful character was inspired by her, and she's deeply offended. She finds that out at a party they're having. You're learning about the fact that she also has a son with him, but he had a daughter with a different woman before they had that son together. Her son's sent away right now. When he comes back, someone immediately comes to like have him stay at their house. So like he's hardly in the story at this point. And this whole book is just so absurd and so weird and so not what I expected at all. I'm super unsure how I feel about it right now because I just was not prepared to have this type of reading experience with this book, so I kind of had to shift my mindset around it. I'm definitely intrigued and I can't stop reading it because I'm like, what am I reading? What is happening? What is going on? So I've avoided reviews of this book before because I wanted to be unbiased. Since I hadn't naturally heard anyone talk about it, I was like, oh, I'll just go into it and it'll be fun and I'll probably like it more because I'll have no expectations. But then things really were blown out of proportion when I was not expecting this to be this type of book at all. And so I did go to read reviews, and now that's kind of helped me set my expectations again about this actually being a very in-depth, slow-moving character study type of book where you're following this woman's descent into madness. So this is very much giving me Mona Awad vibes. If you have read Bunny or All's Well, it's very much reminding me of those books, particularly more All's Well, I guess I would say. And then if you've read from Ottessa Moshfegh, the only book I've read from Ottessa Moshfegh is Death in Her Hands, but this is very much giving me Death in Her Hands vibes. It's also very Hitchcock inspired, so it gives very much Hitchcock film vibes. And so it's just weird. It's like straight up absurd in it being very normal, and like the events that are happening in the story are normal, but it feels eerie for some reason because it's so mundane and nothing's happening, but you're starting starting to see slivers of this woman just being incredibly insecure, and that making her lose her grasp on her identity and the people around her. I don't know what's real and what's not real at certain parts. I don't know much about our character, really. We really don't know much about Miss March in a real sense, because I don't think she knows herself. She's kind of insufferable to follow as a character because she's so vain and wants to be seen as put together and prestigious, but is just super unlikable. But I'm super intrigued by getting to know her and seeing this, so I'm enjoying reading it and seeing what's happening, but it's all so vague and it's difficult to discern the reality of her situation. I was wondering if it was just me, but I was seeing this come up in reviews too, and like, you really just don't know. Like, there's so much commentary that she has about her own weight and body size, sort of, or just like the diet culture that's kind of influenced her, but you have no idea what kind of size this woman is. She could be the most petite woman on the planet, or she could be extremely overweight, and you just don't know because we can't really figure that out. And I don't know, it's just really weird. It's a really weird book, and you're reading it in the third person perspective, but you're following her most closely, and you just can't parse what her reality is because she's just so living in her own world in a way. And so it's very strange, and I'm very curious to see what's going to happen in the rest of the book because it's not super plot driven. It's very much character driven. I'm just gonna keep reading because I'm intrigued, but super weird. Oh, also, I found out this is being adapted and Elizabeth Moss is going to play the main character. Crazy. This is a debut. I'm not seeing anyone talk about it, and it's being adapted into a film. So I'm so intrigued. I'm just so intrigued. I'm gonna get back into this, read a little more, and I don't know, maybe I'll finish it before I update you next. We'll see. I'll see you in a minute for you. So it's accidentally been a very long time since we've last spoke. You don't know that because it's a vlog and that's how editing works, but I finished this book a very long time ago, it feels like. Honestly, I don't even know how long ago it was. I've read like 3 books since I read this one, and I just haven't updated on it for a couple reasons. 1, I have no idea what to say about it, like absolutely no idea. 2, I forgot what the last thing I said was about it because it's been so long since I filmed the last clip that now I don't know where to pick up. And I was editing this video today, but I didn't get up to this part, so like I have no idea what you last heard about this book. And then also, I've just been like weird lately. I don't know, I'm going through like a bit of a funk, and I don't know if that's like seasonal depression or if it's because Red Taylor's version dropped, or if it's because I've been trying to write for NaNoWriMo and that was just like exhausting and burned me out. But I don't know, it's just been like a weird time, so apologies if this is not the best update at this part of the video. So anyway, let's talk about Miss March. This was crazy. This was so weird, so not what I was expecting at all, and I'm so shocked it is being adapted into a film because it is not like a book club pick. Like, it's not a Reese Witherspoon book club pick that everyone's talking about. It's a debut author. I'm like, how did Elizabeth Moss find this and just decide to make this into a movie? I do not know, but that will definitely be interesting to see portrayed on screen. As for how I feel about this book and how I rated it, I honestly, like, I don't know. There's a world in which I could give this a 2-star and say it was boring and nothing really happened. There's a world in which I could give this a 4-star and say it was very eerie and an interesting character study, a brilliant look at domesticity, and call it a day. I honestly, like, I just don't know how I feel about this book. Like, in some ways when I think about it, I'm like, oh, I don't know. And in other ways when I think about it, I'm like, no, it's like kind of cool. So I think it's just one of these books that like, I would not know how to widely recommend this to people. If someone came to my house and was looking at my bookshelves, for most people, I would not tell them to pick this up. But there's like the occasional person that I would suggest this to. So if you like really slow character studies, if you like books that come up in those TikToks that are like books for women in their 20s going through existential crisis, then I think you would like this. So things like Sally Rooney, Mona Awad, Ottessa Moshfegh, Sylvia Plath, like existential stuff, then I would tell you to pick this up. If you don't like that stuff, you're probably good to skip this one. But I am very interested to see the movie, to see how that pans out. So as for like an overall rating, I guess I'm like averaging this to a 3 because in some ways it's a 2 and in some ways it's a 4. So I'm just gonna slap a 3 on it, call it a day. But I hope that was helpful for you. For those of you who wanted me to read this to help kind of scout it out for you. I feel like that's a pretty definitive way to know if you're gonna like it or not. Just know it's not like a action mystery thriller. It is just, it's its own kind of weird existential thing. Okay, so all that leaves is Under the Whispering Door for the rest of this video, and I have started this book, and I am currently this far into it, which is around page 75 at the start of chapter 7. And I have a much better idea of what this book is about than I did initially. So this is a story about this guy named Wallace, who is a lawyer, and he is grumpy as heck and just devotes his life to work and is just a jerk. Very much like the Christmas stories where like there's the person, like there's the guy, the Scrooge, what is this called? I don't know. The Night Before Christmas. Is that? I don't even know. Do you see, like, my brain fog is just like really bad right now. But anyway, the whole, you know, like Christmas story of he's a Scrooge and he spent his whole life focusing on the wrong things, but he gets this opportunity to be visited by the 3 ghosts and like goes to Christmas future and past and present and like make better decisions about his life. It's very much that kind of style thing. So Wallace Price, grumpy lawyer, dies, now is being sent to the ferryman, who is this guy named Hugo, who works at this tea shop, is the location that looks like this house, which is very on par with TJ Klune's quirky, cozy style, that this is all set at like this weird like house that it's just like these boxes stacked on top of each other in a weird way, and it's at this tea shop, and that's like where you pass through death. So there's this character May who goes to get him, and she is like the Reaper, and she finds him at his funeral and takes him to the ferryman, and now he is at this tea shop. It's like this interdimensional plane type of situation. I'm not really sure yet, but he's like figuring out he's dead, figuring out what this means, and he's going to be spending his time here until he decides to cross over, I guess. And the synopsis says that he gets the chance to live a lifetime in 7 days. So I guess he's going to be doing some things. I don't know. It's very slow so far. Like really not a lot has happened in the 75 pages. So I don't have a full grasp of what the like fun and games part of this story is. But so far it's giving me about everything I expected, except it's a little bit more adult and a little bit more sad than I fully anticipated. So this one I don't think is going to be as quirky and funny as The House of the Cerulean Sea was. I think this one's going to be a lot deeper and more emotional. And like I don't know if I'm ready for that, but we're just gonna have to be. We're just gonna have to be ready. So far I love the way it's written. I'm liking getting to know the characters, and it's reminding me a lot of The Midnight Library so far by Matt Haig, but like this is better so far. So yeah, I really don't have too much to say about it because not too much has happened in the first 75 pages. So I'm gonna read another 100 pages or so before I check in with you again and then give you an update on how it's going then. Okay, hello. I have just filmed my November wrap up, so you won't be seeing that yet, but you'll be seeing that in a couple of days. So if this scenery looks very familiar to you in a couple of days when you're watching my wrap up, you'll know why. But I did finish Under the Whispering Door this morning, and so while I'm all set up, I figured let's just pop in and wrap this bad boy up. I've got a lot of thoughts about this one. What ended up happening with this book is it took me like weeks to read. It has been a long going process getting this vlog completed. I went through a really bad reading slump where I just wasn't enjoying like anything I was reading. You're gonna see in my November wrap up just how my November was in general. It was just not great. And so I do think that affected my experience with this book a little bit. And so I do want to let that be known so that you can take my review with a grain of salt, because when I'm having a not great time, my reading will get affected too. And so that could be part of my experience with this book. But all that being said, I ended up giving this one like a 3-star rating. I definitely didn't love it. It definitely wasn't a 5-star. It was really hard for me to keep picking this book up and reading it because it was so slow. It was so slow going. It was so boring. Nothing was happening. Like the beginning started pretty strong. The middle was just not good. There was just not a plot. Things were not happening. It was so boring. But then the last 100 pages fully hooked me in the story. And that's when I felt like, okay, here's the story I've been waiting for. Here's the plot I've been waiting for. The stakes are finally raised. I care what happens to these characters now. I'm intrigued in the story. I'm worried for the characters now. There's like bad things might happen. I want to know what's going to end up happening to this character and this character. And it kept me very engaged. So I read the last 100 pages of this book in like one sitting, whereas the rest of the book, it took me like 2 weeks to get to that point. So I said before that I thought this book was going to be like a Christmas Carol where this guy gets the opportunity to like see his regrets or relive things, or kind of like the Midnight Library in that way too. But oh my gosh, nothing happens in the story. Like there's no sequence of events that are like really helping build him as a character. He's just hanging out at this tea shop, just vibing for like 3 weeks before anything happens that pushes him to action and makes that story really compelling. I also was misled by that because the synopsis says that he ends up getting a week to cross over. So he sets about living a lifetime in 7 days. That's the synopsis of the story. That does not happen until the last 100 pages of the book. And so when we're reading and reading and reading, and he's been here for 3 weeks, I'm like, was I lied to? Why would you act like this was going to take place in 7 days and he was going to get all these different opportunities to live a lifetime? That just seemed like a lie. But then something happens in those last 100 pages that only gives him a week left. And that is when it's like, okay, you got a week left to hang out at this tea shop and get your ish together before you got to go through the door. And then that is when the story is so good. So if that would have happened at around page like 100, and then that would have been the story, I would have liked it so much more. But you spend so much time just chilling with these characters at the tea shop, which might be nice and cozy if you like a story like that. It's really just like hanging out and vibes. But I was already going through a reading slump, and so I needed plot and action and things to convince me to keep picking the book up. Sometimes I would pick this book up, read like 3 pages and be done and just like set it back down because I was just not compelled. So that was really disappointing. I really hated that happened, but the last 100 pages were so good. So it does give me kind of conflicting thoughts on it. That's why it ends up being like a 3-star for me, because I really did enjoy what should have been the story, but it took so long to get there. So yeah, would I still recommend this one? I think so, but I would want you to know that you're gonna have to read like 270 pages of vibes before you get to the good stuff. So if you're okay with that, pick it up. Also, the sadness factor. I didn't cry reading this. It wasn't particularly hard-hitting for me. I thought this might destroy me and I would be sobbing and it would be so emotional, but it didn't really end up being that emotional for me. And I don't know if that's because I have numbed myself to emotions after having a difficult month, or if it just wasn't that impactful. I think part of it is because it took me so long to get attached to the characters that by the time we were at the end, the emotional part wasn't what I needed. I just needed the action. So I was excited by the action. But yeah, a little bit disappointing, but it's okay. I will still continue to pick books up from TJ Klune if he continues writing adult books. I don't think I'm as interested in his YA stuff, so I'm just not like gravitating towards that. But if he keeps writing adult stuff, I'll keep considering it. But yeah, that is Under the Whispering Door. So that is a wrap on this reading vlog. It is honestly kind of a miracle that we made it here, because I almost just scrapped this entire video when I was just in a reading slump and not having a good time. But in summary, these 3 books are all so different from each other. They all have such different vibes. They're also representative of my different reading tastes and the things that I like. So I like more emotional, whimsical, magical stories. I like weird, absurd, what's going on stories. And I really just like a fun, fast-paced thriller. So I think this was actually a really good set of books to end up reading for this vlog. It gave a good mix of my tastes. I hope you enjoyed getting to watch me read these books, even though I didn't end up with any new favorites. At least I didn't end up hating any of them. They all at least made a 3-star rating, which is pretty good. But let me know if you guys have read any of these books and what you think about them. If you agree with any of my thoughts or disagree with my thoughts, let me know in the comments down below and we can chat about these books. But yeah, this video was all for you guys as a celebration and a thank you for being here. I can't believe there are over 4,000 people here now watching my videos. Absolutely insane, but I'm so grateful that you're here, because there's nothing better than just reading books and talking about them on the internet. That is just my favorite thing. People in real life ask me like, what are your hobbies? What do you do? And I'm like, I read books and I talk about them on the internet. And they're like, what else? I'm like, that's it. That's all I do. It's just who I am. It's fun. But you guys are my people. You understand. So yeah, thanks for being here. And I'm excited for next year's plans. I have fun plans for videos I want to do, getting a little bit more creative with my channel. So also you can let me know in the comments below what you're excited to continue seeing from me, what you really hope to see more of in the next year. I definitely want to do more reading vlogs. I want to do more just like fun concept videos. I don't really know how to explain it, but you'll see as it starts to come together next year. But yeah, okay, I'm rambling. Thank you for being here. I'm looking forward to everything else. That is it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on my next video. Bye.